Good morning to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Before I go to the editorial analysis, I would like to talk about a new course I'm going to launch, online course. It is English course, foundation course for all competitive exams. It is a live and the classes are going to be live and interactive. And this course will be very useful for all competitive exams. It covers grammar, reading comprehension skill, vocabulary, and new patterns, both banks and SSC. Taught in a systematic way with exam centric and student centric approach. I'm launching on 19th of this month, that is Friday. I will come up with a video regarding the complete syllabus, the time slot, the duration, all these aspects. Please wait for the video. In that video, I'll provide all the details. Now let us go to the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Today, there are so many words you can learn from this editorial. Today's editorial is an important editorial in the sense it is related to economy, it is related to foreign trade, exports and imports. So, a lot of words and an important editorial. You may get something like this as a passage in the exam, either in prelims or mains. Let us have a look at the first word. Trip can be a noun, can be a verb. As a noun, you all know, journey related, a nice trip. We enjoyed the trip. But here, trip as a verb, a different meaning altogether. As a verb, trip means to lose your balance after knocking your foot against something. That is a literal meaning. But based on the context, a trip means to lose balance, not to be firm, and something negative. It has a negative connotation. Stance we have got recently, part of speech noun, the stance taken by someone, a way of thinking about something, especially expressed in a publicly stated opinion. It goes with parties or the president of the country or the prime minister, anyone who holds an important position, and the stance taken by those people means what? A way of thinking about something, especially expressed in a publicly stated opinion. Obviously, it goes with celebrities and important people. Slump, this word goes with, it can be a noun, it can be a verb, but here used as a verb. It goes with business of prices, values, or sales to fall suddenly. When the prices fall suddenly, we say there is a slump in the market, an important word. Slump in the market, a typical expression. Subdue, part of speech verb, an important word. To reduce the force of something or to prevent something from existing or developing. You try to reduce the force of something or you try to stop the progress of something or developing something from development, something and its development, then we use a word subdue. It is a regular verb, subdued is a past form. Bleak adjective we have got many a time. Part of speech adjective, that means you have to think of a noun. What are the typical combinations? Bleak future, bleak prospects. So bleak means no hope for the future. It has a negative connotation, it's a negative word. Decline we have got many a time, we have got recently. Part of speech verb and adjective form declining, declining numbers, declining standards, declining quality. These are the combinations. As a verb, decline, to gradually become less, worse, or lower. Based on that, we make combinations like declining standards, declining numbers, declining quality, an important word. Steep goes with mountains and valleys. Here, superlative form steepest, part of speech adjective, of a slope. Usually, if you take mountains, valleys, especially mountains, we say steep and rising or falling at a sharp angle. What does it mean? Rising or falling at a sharp angle. Steep slope means very sharp slope. Usually it goes with that, but in this context, it goes with the prices and exports. Akin, an important word. You have to know the part of speech. Part of speech adjective. Akin means having some of the same qualities. You can also think of the word similar, having some of the same qualities. Akin, it takes a preposition to, akin to. You have to remember the prepositional combination as well, an important one. Linger, verb, but we can use the ing form of the verb as an adjective. Based on that lingering adjective, to take a long time to leave or disappear. Something that lingers means it is there for a long time, or it takes a long time to leave or disappear. A lingering threat, a lingering slump, typical combinations. Enunciate, we have got many a time, part of speech verb. It goes with the speech. Enunciation is a noun form. To pronounce words or parts of words clearly. Enunciation, noun form, an important word. The word replicate is an important word, but we have got many a time, part of speech verb, to make or do something again in exactly the same way. Replicate something, you produce the same copy of something. Then replication, replicate. Succor, an important word. I would like to reiterate, I have been telling you guys, see, usually I bring about 10 to 15 words. All the words may not be unfamiliar. You may know a few words, familiar words, but you may come across some words, and those words are unfamiliar and a bit difficult to remember. A typical example, succor. It is not a regular word, we don't use regularly. Then what you have to do, you have to make a note. After the session, you have to spend some time, you have to make a few examples, and you should revise on and off. Only then you will be able to remember. Succor, part of speech, noun. Help given to someone, especially someone who is suffering or in need. When someone is in need of help, you give the helping hand, and that is known as succor, part of speech, noun. Not a regular word. Proclaim, another important word, and from this you get the noun form proclamation. So proclaim can be adjective, can be not an adjective, it is a verb. It is a regular verb. Proclaimed. To announce something publicly or officially, especially something positive. So it has a positive connotation, and you have to know the noun form. What is a noun form? Proclamation. That you have to remember. Announce publicly something or officially. Ebb goes with the ocean, the water, the tides. So ebbing, ing form, ebb is a verb. It can be a verb, it can be a noun. When the sea or tide ebbs, it moves away from the coast and falls to a lower level. So, in the context of the editorial, exports going down, that's what it means. Nothing to do with the ocean, nothing to do with the sea. Plummet, an important word. Plummet, to be very specific, part of speech, noun. It means to fall very quickly and suddenly. This also goes with prices, business, all these things. Plummet, an important word. Succor, not a regular word. Plummet, not a regular word. These words you have to spend some time after the session and make your own example so that you will be able to remember. Concede is also an important word, though we got a few times. Concede, part of speech verb. To admit often unwillingly that something is true. Concede, the defeat, a typical combination, means what? Initially you refuse to accept something, but later you are compelled or you are forced to admit, often unwillingly, reluctantly, that something is true. So concede, an important word. Respite, noun. Usually when you are tired, you have a lot of work, you're hard pressed for time, then you look for a respite, break, a pause or rest from something difficult or unpleasant. In this context, unpleasant. No exports, the business has come down, obviously. You need a respite from that, a pause or rest. But usually it goes with everyday English. When someone is tired, exhausted, then the person may say, I need a break. In formal English, we are looking for respite. And it also goes with rains, continuous rains, downpour. Imagine it rains cats and dogs for a long time. Then people may feel we need a respite from heavy rains or torrential rains. Falter, part of speech verb, an important word. To lose strength or purpose and stop, almost to stop. In a way, falter means to fail. It has a negative connotation. To lose strength or purpose and stop. Falter in your approach means something went wrong. You may slow down, you may lose your strength or purpose, and you may stop. Almost to stop. Falter. Turmoil we got the other day. I gave one combination, political turmoil, while when I was teaching the meaning of the word chaos, chaotic situation, total confusion. Then I gave the word turmoil, I gave the very good. I gave the combination political turmoil. a state of confusion, uncertainty, or disorder. But in the editorial, they have used trade turmoil related to trade, means a lot of confusion. Slack, this word also goes with business, part of speech adjective, showing little activity, not busy or not happening in a positive way. Slack in the market, slack business. So typical combinations. Those are the words from today's editorial. Some important words are there. You have to spend time and those important words and new words, only then you can remember. How does the editorial start? Tripping trade. As I said, this is all about trade. To be specific, it is related to foreign trade, exports and imports. Any editorial related to economy is important, one thing, and also an editorial related to foreign trade or related to economy in terms of progress. It provides a lot of data, and data oriented, there's nothing to explain as such. Every sentence talks about the percentage, either high or low, going up or coming down, and all that you have to do in the exam, if at all you get an editor a passage based on foreign trade or something that deals with a lot of data, they may ask questions based on that data that you have to. For example, third successive contraction in exports, 12.7%. So here you have to focus on the exact percentage. Based on that, they may ask questions. So how does it start? Tripping trade. Trip means to lose your balance. Usually it goes with, it can be a noun, it can be a verb, it goes with everyday English. As a verb, he tripped on a stone, over a stone. Means what? He lost balance. But in this context, it goes with trade. Tripping trade. Lose your balance after knocking your foot against something, literal meaning. In this context, losing the balance when it comes to exports and imports. On India and its trade stance, an important word. Stance means what? A way of thinking about something, especially expressed in a publicly stated opinion. The policy, export policy, import policy, and the stance taken towards exports and imports. Its trade stance, an important word. What is the main idea of the editorial? India must not only, must, already we have got so many times, I don't want to say, it has two functions that you have to recollect. India must not only rely on, today I could not bring whatever goes with grammar in green, but I will underline. Here, rely on is a phrasal verb, means depend on. There are some phrasal verbs with the same meaning. Rely on, depend on, bank on. So, bank on, rely on, depend on, they all mean the same. And you have to remember the preposition on. Rely on, India must rely on what? A few large markets, but opt for integration with global value chains. There are two dimensions here. One is India must not rely on, must not. If you rely on a few large markets, something goes wrong with those few large markets, obviously you will be in trouble. Based on that, the editorial opines India must not, negative, must not rely on a few large markets, but based on that contrasting word, contrasting idea, opt for, choose for integration with global value chains. So the scope should be broad, and India should take a holistic approach, comprehensive approach, exhaustive approach, should not depend or must not rely on a few large markets, but opt for, look for, choose for integration with global value chains. That means touching many countries and many global chains, value chains. Then they are safe. This is the main idea of the editorial. Now the editorial provides a lot of data related to exports and imports and the policy matters. This financial year is off to, means started, off to a subdued start. This financial year is off to a subdued start. Means what? Not something positive. Subdue means to reduce the force of something or to prevent something from existing or developing. So you should be able to understand this financial year did not start on a positive note. He is off to a subdued start, something negative, on the trade front. So the financial year, so many fronts are there. When it comes to the trade front, it is off to a subdued start. This is a statement related to trade. trade front. And to substantiate the statement, the editorial provides a lot of data. Goods exports slumped too. Slump goes with business of prices, values, sales to fall suddenly. And to substantiate so many sentences. First one, goods exports slumped to 34.6 billion US dollars in April, the lowest since last October. Lowest since last October, that is negative. The worst month for outbound shipments in 2022-23. The worst month, superlative form, for outbound shipment, that means exports, in 2022-23. The first data related to the statement off to a subdued start. This was the third successive contraction in exports. Third successive contraction, not a good thing. Once okay, twice okay, but third successive continuously contraction means exports going down in exports and 12.7% below last April's numbers. Compared to last April's numbers, 12.7% below last April's numbers. Again, it is like negative. Now it touches imports. Whenever we talk about foreign trade, there are two dimensions. One is exports, the other is imports. So coming to imports, again, it has to substantiate based on something negative. Here there is a verb, shrink, shrank, shrunk. You have to know all the three forms. Imports shrank by a sharper 14% to trip to a 15-month low. Again, negative. What is it? Shrank by a sharper 14%, went down by 14% to trip to a 15-month low of under 50 billion US dollars. So again, 15-month low under 50 billion US dollars. Again, to substantiate. What could be the reasons? Now the editorial talks about the reasons. A slowing global economy, courtesy Russia-Ukraine war and other factors, but that is the main factor. A slowing global economy had been hurting exports. If the global economy is fast, then we can export a lot. But global economy is slow, and it has been going on that way because of the war, the major impact, negative impact. A slowing global economy had been hurting exports. Obviously, exports get hurt. That means you cannot expect exports, the volumes to go up. Had been hurting exports through the second half of 2022-23 with declines in 4 of 6 months. Declines. So again, negative information to substantiate the main idea. And here there's one important word, though we have got many a time. Decline means what? To go down, gradually become less, worse, or lower. So declines in 4 of 6 months. Out of 6 months, 4 months declines. Obviously not a good thing. Had been hurting exports. But April's initial estimates are troubling, not just because. Now it talks about the month of April. But April's initial estimates are troubling, not just because they represent the steepest fall. They are troubling, not because, that's an important, not just because, an important expression. They are troubling, but why? Not just because they represent the steepest fall. Steepest means the sharpest. Usually it goes with mountain ranges, mountains and valleys. Here related to exports. Steepest fall in recent months, but that is not the reason. What is the reason? But also. I should have brought this in green, but I would like to underline and talk about the grammar aspect. Usually what happens, we have something called parallel expression, parallel construction. Bank exams, SSC also, quite often they ask questions related to parallel expression or parallel construction or parallel structure. What is this parallel expression? When you use a particular grammatical unit and you want to repeat, you have to use the same grammatical unit or you have to use the same grammatical structure. And when it comes to conjunctions, one important conjunction, not only but also. Not only if you use after that an adjective, after but also you have to use an adjective. And when I teach this, I tell students, and now I would like to reiterate, English has rules, English has exceptions. If the same sentence is given in the exam, students may think there is an error. Not only, here they focus on but also, and here they don't see also. So they may think it is not correct. No, You have to read the sentence meticulously, understand the context. Based on the context, we may use the word only, we may not use the word only. Don't jump to hasty conclusion. So here, but April's initial estimates are troubling, not just because. Here the word just has been used to emphasize. Based on that, the writer has not used the word only. So it doesn't mean that it is grammatically wrong. That you have to know. Not just because they represent the steepest fall in recent months, but also signal a sudden shift. Signal here means indicate a sudden shift in sequential momentum, akin to a sudden shift in what? Sequential momentum. Akin means having some of the same qualities. You can also think of the word similar, similar to the use of emergency handbrakes. Generally, we don't use handbrakes. Rarest of rare, emergency. When the regular brake fails, then you may resort to emergency handbrakes. So the sentence says, but this the steepest fall, that may not be the actual reason, but also signal. Initial estimates also signal something. What do they signal? A sudden shift in sequential momentum. And that sudden shift in sequential momentum is akin to the use of emergency handbrakes. This March, again statistical data, this March, despite lingering, again green should have been in green, despite. There are two prepositions with the same function, they express contrast. There are so many, in fact, but generally we consider these two a pair. Despite, in spite of. People make mistakes, common errors when it comes to despite, when it comes to in spite of. What is a common error that goes with despite? They try to use a preposition of after despite. Despite of is not correct. Despite does not take the preposition of. That one has to remember. They have given many a time. Second thing, in spite of. A lot of people write in spite of as two words, but in spite of should be written as three separate words. Do remember. Common error, they write as two words, in spite one word, of one word. No, that is not correct. You have to write in spite of three separate words. That is also very important. They have given in a few competitive exams. This March, despite lingering global demand weakness, linger, to stay for a long time, one meaning, and to take a long time to leave or disappear. So, lingering means in a way you can say existing. Lingering what? Global demand weakness, something negative. Exports had hit a 9-month high of nearly 42 billion. So here, despite contrasting, despite lingering global demand weakness, something positive. What is that positive? Exports had hit a 9-month high of nearly 42 billion US dollars, while imports were 60 billion US dollars. In spite of the fact there was lingering global demand weakness, something positive has happened or had happened. The new foreign trade policy, as I said, any editorial that deals with foreign trade has to touch three dimensions or four dimensions. One, it has to talk about exports. Second, it has to talk about imports. Third, it has to talk about the foreign trade policy. Fourth, it has to talk about globally what is happening and what is making a negative impact or a positive impact on exports and imports. So here the sentence is about the policy. The new foreign trade policy enunciated, an important word, enunciation. Enunciate, verb form, enunciated, means what? To say something in a clear manner, to pronounce the words or parts of words clearly. The new foreign trade policy enunciated means stated very clearly a $2 trillion export goal to be achieved in 7 years. So there's a target, there's a goal. What is that goal? $2 trillion export goal, and every goal we need a time period, stipulated time period, and within which what is the frame time to be taken. Here it says to be achieved in 7 years. That is a stipulated time period. Its first month of implementation couldn't have been off to a shakier start. So based on this goal to achieve $2 trillion export goal to be achieved in 7 years, what has happened? In first month of implementation, could not have been off to a shakier start. The prospects of last year's healthy 14.7% growth, last year it was healthy, that lifted total exports to about 776 billion US dollars, being replicated in 2023-24, look bleak already. Last year it was positive and it lifted total exports to about 776 US billion dollars, and replicating that, replicate means what? To produce the same thing, make or do something again in exactly the same way. That means again getting 776 US billion dollars being replicated in 2023-24 look bleak already. There's one important word, bleak means what? If a situation is bleak, there's little or no hope for the future. Something that is chances are less. One may draw some succor, a new word, help given to someone, especially someone who is suffering or in need. One may draw some succor from the trade deficit easing to a 20-month low. Trade deficit should not be high, it has to be low. So, easing to a 20-month low. But that is something positive. But managing the trade deficit cannot be the goal for policymakers. When it comes to policymakers, the goal should not be, and that is not the goal. What is that? Trade deficit. That cannot be the goal for policymakers. Something else has to be the goal. Falling imports also indicate that domestic demand, India's proclaimed insulation against global headwinds, is ebbing. Falling imports also indicate that domestic demand, domestic means if there is domestic demand, obviously imports they go up. But falling imports also indicate something. What do they indicate? India's proclaimed insulation means to get protected. Proclamation means what? To state something publicly. Against global headwinds is ebbing. Against global headwinds is ebbing. Ebbing means to fall to a lower level. Moreover, when imports of petroleum down 14% and gems and jewelry plummet, an important word, to fall very quickly and suddenly, they also affect exports of value added end products. All data related. Petroleum exports shrank 17.5% in April, shrank, again something negative, while jewelry shipments slipped at 30%, slipped to go down, marking the seventh contraction in 10 months, seven times contraction in a period of 10 months, even as other job creators such as textiles have been hit hard. Generally, when we talk about exports, value added petroleum exports one thing, and jewelry exports another thing, and the third one textiles. And all the three segments have been affected, have been hit hard. That commodity prices have cooled from last year is only one reason for the shrinking trade basket. So, what is the reason? Only one reason. Many reasons. The commodity prices have cooled from last year is only one reason for the shrinking trade basket. Means other reasons are there. Officials concede. Concede means to accept or to admit reluctantly, unwillingly that something is true. Officials concede there does not seem to be any immediate respite. So something negative has been going on. Now they admit there may not be immediate respite, pause, break, likely from faltering global demand. It will continue. Faltering global demand. Falter means to lose strength or purpose. So there's no global demand. Obviously, it has been going on for some time. They admit we cannot expect a respite, we cannot expect a break from that. It will continue for some more time. As I said, because of the war, negative impact, China's opening up of the economy may have prompted a global trade growth forecast hike. So here China comes into picture. China's opening up of the economy may have prompted, possibility but not sure, a global trade growth forecast hike. Global trade growth forecast hike from 1% to 1.7% for 2023 from the World Trade Organization. But recent Chinese data have been underwhelming. There are two words, overwhelming, underwhelming. Overwhelming positive, underwhelming negative. They projected some growth 1% to 1.7%, But contrasting information, recent Chinese data have been underwhelming, not to the expected levels, about the recovery momentum. Reluctant European and North American markets are only expected to speed up goods orders by September, a long way to go for the festive season, while services exports that have held up through the recent trade turmoil may slow too. All these talk about lingering global demand is not very strong, it is weak, and the lingering one, that too means it may not disappear in the immediate near future. One, it talks about speed up. Reluctant European and North American markets are only expected to speed up goods orders by September for the festive season, while services, on the other hand, services exports that have held up through the recent trade turmoil may slow too. So turmoil, a confused state of confusion. How does the editorial end? India must use this slack period, dull period. Slack means what? Showing little activity, no business activity. We use slack in the market, slack in business. So, editorial opines India must use this slack period to review its overall trade stance, that means the policy. The reliance on a few large markets, not advisable, the editorial thinks, and pursue greater integration with global value chains, main idea being reiterated at the fag end of the editorial. One must not rely on a few large markets and must pursue greater integration with global value chains and multilateral trading arrangements. All these will make the exports and imports very strong. These would yield, then what will be the impact? These would yield better. Here, yield means outcome, produce better outcomes than fresh measures to hold down the import bill. Instead of going in for fresh measures to hold down the import bill, they should focus on whatever has been mentioned here, the main idea of the editorial. A bit difficult to understand because it is related to economy. Then you have to read once or twice, then you'll be able to understand. Any editorial related to economy, you cannot understand one reading for two reasons. One, you may not have the background information, then you have to get the background information. Second, you may come across some words that go with business, exports, imports. You have to know the meanings. Only then, after that, also, you have to read twice, thrice. Then you will be able to comprehend the passage. I insist you have to spend some time on a passage on an editorial like this because usually in the exam you get regularly passages related to Indian economy. So that way it is important related to foreign trade. Now let us go to questions based on comprehension skill based on this editorial. What is this editorial about? What had been hurting exports through the second half of 2022-23? Always focus on keywords, but here they may change the data, and you have to be very careful. You have to read the passage and look at the data very carefully. Exact thing you have to choose. What is akin? What is akin to the use of emergency handbrakes? Something has similar qualities. And what is akin to the use of emergency handbrakes based on the context of the editorial? What did the new foreign trade policy enunciate? Keywords for new foreign trade policy, and what did the new policy enunciate? Easy to answer. India must use a slack period to review what? Now there is a slack period. India must use this slack period to review something. What is that? You have to write. Now let us go to practice questions based on exam topics. Today I have brought error location. I have brought cloze test to provide the contextual awareness, and I have brought words and meanings. So read the first one and try to spot the error. For those who lose someone dear to them, there is anger, disbelief, and lack of acceptance, and this is sometimes unleashed in the hospital, doctors, and nurses. Where is the error? For those who lose someone dear to them, there is anger, disbelief, and lack of acceptance, and this is sometimes unleashed, released. No one has responded so far. I want you guys to respond. I know it's a bit challenging, not easy, but if you read carefully, respect every word, then you'll be able to spot the error. Lost, no, no. For those who lose, it is in present. You cannot change the verb to past. Nothing wrong. There is an error. Answer is not the fifth option. There is an error. Not in the first part. No, 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 no. See, here you have to understand, for those who lose, verb in present, there is anger present, and this is sometimes present. The whole context talks about a fact. Then we have to use present tense. Nothing wrong with the verb lose. No, 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 no. Oh, no one has got it right. Here, unleash means release. Generally, when I talk to youngsters, you have a lot of potential, a lot of energy, a lot of talent. I tell the youngsters, you have to unleash your potential. Means what? Release your potential. So they release their anger, disbelief, and lack of acceptance. And this is sometimes unleashed. Not, you must have thought, in the hospital. Here, if you look at only in the hospital, it is right. But there is a comma, doctors and nurses. Then we cannot use, you cannot say in doctors, you cannot say in nurses. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So what is the correct preposition? On the hospital, on doctors, on nurses, unleash on the hospital, on doctors, on nurses. That is a right preposition. You can say in the hospital, but you cannot say in doctors, in nurses. So this is about preposition, appropriate preposition. And surprisingly, no one has got it right. I'm surprised. On, because it talks about doctors and nurses. On doctors, on nurses. Then we cannot use in. Touching areas where DNA may exist, and talking, sneezing, and to cough over evidence must be avoided. This is rather easy if you know a particular dimension, and they touch this dimension quite often in competitive exams. Touching areas where DNA may exist, and talking, sneezing, and to cough over evidence must be avoided. Where is the error? Again, no one has responded. Today you're taking a lot of time. That means these questions are not easy. I thought you would be able to manage, but now so far no one has responded. That is again surprising. Yes, Martin has got it right, first one, and also Bhavani has got it right. Here, this question is based on parallel expression. What is it based on? Parallel expression. Touching, verb ing form. Areas where DNA may exist. Not that important. Touching, talking, sneezing, and here you cannot use a verb. You have to use a verb in ing form. Then it is parallel expression. You cannot use a verb in the basic form with to. So here, to cough is not correct. It should be coughing. Then what is the sentence you are going to get? Touching and talking, sneezing, and coughing over evidence must be avoided. So a question based on parallel expression, an important dimension. Now go to question number 3. Most interesting thing about the Supreme Court of India's judgment on the Shiv Sena issue is that both sides think it is in their favor. So where is the error? Please mention the question number and mention the key word, the right to expression or the right word. That's right, Ajay. Touching, talking, sneezing, and coughing. That is precisely what we call parallel structure, parallel construction, parallel expression. Please go to question number 3. Most interesting thing about the Supreme Court of India's judgment on the Shiv Sena issue is that both sides think that it is in their favor. Oh, who is this? Very good, Motain. I appreciate. Again, you're the first one to respond, and you got the answer. Here, most interesting. What is the adjective? Interesting. Interesting. Any word that has more than two syllables, multi-syllable or polysyllable words take more and most. Single syllable, bisyllable words take ER and EST, degrees of comparison. So interesting, four syllables. Then interesting is adjective positive form, more interesting comparative form, most interesting superlative form. But the superlative form, we have to use a definite article, the. So based on that, the is missing, the most interesting thing. And the question is based on degrees of comparison. To be very specific, superlative form, the most interesting. Superlative form, we have to use a definite article, the tallest, the biggest, the most intelligent, the most interesting. Please go to question number 4. The conventional wisdom says that woke ideas began in the social science departments of American universities, migrated to the country's newspapers, and spread elsewhere. Context is not Indian context. I brought from an international magazine. So understand the context and try to spot the error. The conventional wisdom says that woke ideas. Nothing wrong with the reporting verb says. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with began. Here you have to look at the sentence very carefully and you have to focus on the verbs began, migrated, and spread. There are 3 verbs and reporting verb is in present, nothing wrong with that. And there is, now you have to spot the error. Where is the error? Anusha says fourth part, Motain also says fourth part. No, this time you haven't got it right. That's why I have brought this. I know how you guys think. All of you listen very carefully. If you take the verb spread, spread, all the 3 forms, spread, spread, same. Spread, spread, spread. So here, began past, migrated past. This is also in past. What is the past form of spread? Same, like cut, 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 put, put, put. So no error. Answer is no error. No one has got, who is this? Govardhan. Govardhan says no error. That's a pleasant surprise. You're right, Govardhan, no error. Verb in past, began, migrated, spread. All the verbs are in past. So no error. You must have thought spreaded. Usually people think spread. They don't expect the word spread to be the past form of spread. All the 3 same forms, spread, spread, spread. We are standing on the edge of the cliff with biodiversity collapse, and the rejection of the nature restoration law would be jumping in the void. Void means empty space, vacuum. This is a bit difficult to understand the context. You can answer based on contextual awareness. We are standing on the edge of the cliff. When you cannot decide, look at the subject, then the verb, then phrases, clauses, and check every phrase, clause, subject, verb, object, and then you decide where the error is. We are standing, present continuous tense, no problem. Where? On the edge of the cliff. There are 2 phrases. On the edge of the cliff, no problem. With biodiversity collapse. With what? Biodiversity collapse, no problem. And the rejection of, because of that, and the rejection of the nature restoration law. The rejection of what? The nature restoration law, no problem. Would be jumping, will be jumping, no, opinion, would be jumping, void, jump takes a preposition into. Jump into. So in is not, there is an error. No, no. Jump takes a preposition into the void. Yes. No need of those question marks, Ajay. The correct preposition is into. That's why I have brought this as a question from an international magazine. Jump into the void. Into is the correct preposition. Has anyone got all the five correct? If you say yes, sir, that will be a pleasant surprise. Let us go to Cloze Test, and do remember this was the initial model. They would give a passage or a paragraph with a few blanks and only the words based on the number of blanks. Five blanks, five words. But later the model changed and now we have a few new models. But the typical model is what? There is a blank and there are five options. You have to choose one word. But this is a better one because if you can get the right one, if you can get the right word, you are able to get based on contextual awareness. That is important. Contextual awareness is important. Please have a look. Something that claim fraud. Who is this Morten? First person to respond. Very good. This time you have got it right. That claim products are carbon neutral using offsets are to be banned by the UK's advertising. So here the answer is the first word is adverts. Advert means advertisement. Both mean the same. Advertisement, advert. Advertisements, plural, adverts, plural. Adverts or ads or advertisements jump into the river. Obviously, into. Ajay, into. Jump into the river. Jump into the well. Jump in the well. Jump in the river. No, into the river. Adverts that claim products are carbon neutral using offsets. Offset means to lower the impact of something or to make something look not that harmful, are to be banned by the UK's advertising. You have got the word recently, so you should be able to get the word. 1-4 I have written already. Yes, who is this? Anusha has got it. UK's advertising watchdogs. Oh, no, second, no. First one. No, it is not. You mean it is a second blank watchdogs. Yes, you got it right, Anusha. You should have mentioned the number or you have mentioned the word second blank. Fine, it's okay. Many students have got it right. So blank 1, it is adverts. Blank 2, first word, what is it? UK's advertising watchdogs. Unless companies can prove they really work, the Guardian can reveal as Gookie becomes the latest company to struggle with a high profile environmental commitment based on what? Topic wise concepts. What do you mean by that? Topic wise concepts. So when will you tell us? What do you mean by that? Could you please rephrase your question? Sai Balaji. Rephrase. What exactly do you want me to do or what are you expecting to be specific? Third one, offsetting. That is right. Based on offsetting, full stop. How can they jump a river? Crossing the river, you cannot jump. Stream you can do, not a river. Next one, there is a full stop. Growing concern. What is, very good. Who is this? Naidu Paidi. Here we have to use amid. Amid growing concern. In the middle of growing concern. Yes, Tapa also got it right. So, amid is the right word. What is the last one? What are you left with? Watchdogs over, offsetting over, adverts over, amid over. You're left with here as part of a greenwashing crackdown. Answer is the third one. Greenwashing crackdown later this year after a 6-month review. Has anyone got all the five correct? If you say yes, good, that is highly appreciable. Because here you should understand the context, and based on that contextual awareness, you should get the right word. And that will help in the exam. That's the reason why I have been bringing this model. And this was the initial model, close test. Let us go to the words you got yesterday from the editorial. And 24 hours, you're testing your memory. Almost all the words are easy, should not be that difficult. Hooch, part of speech, noun. So means what? No one has responded. Again, no problem, no problem. E, inferior whiskey. Who is this? Tirupati Rao. Very good. First one to respond. I appreciate that. Illicit. Usually, in the context, they have used illicit liquor, but it goes with children. Born to people who are not married. Then we say illicit child. So means what? Illegal. H is the answer. Spurious, liquor, adjective. Think of the combinations that will help in the long run. I used one word yesterday, so I brought the same word. To make something impure, not genuine, not pure. It goes with information as well, but based on the context, it goes with. Usually, if you read the newspapers, you come across the combination spurious liquor. A lot of people died after consuming spurious liquor. Means what? Adulterated. Adulteration means making something impure. Contain has many meanings based on the context. Contain means what? Control. A is the answer. Apparent, part of speech, adjective. Apparent development, apparent behavior. I used one word yesterday, so same one you can. Answer is obvious, something that goes without saying. Lapse, part of speech, noun. So what does it mean? Temporary failure. Answer is C. Disconcerting, part of speech, adjective. Means what? Disturbing. Answer is F. Disconcerting development, incident, event. Solatium, part of speech, noun. Compensation, to make someone feel happy about a negative incident. So answer is B. Deceased person, dead or recently dead. So adjective. Deceased person, dead. But generally we say recently dead. Vogue, something in vogue, part of speech, adjective. Meaning, state of being popular, I. Has anyone got all correct? So that's all about today's editorial. And when I started the session, I spent a few minutes on the new course I'm going to launch on Friday, 19th of this month. It is a foundation course for all competitive exams. I will come up with a video. In that video, I'll provide all the details, the syllabus, and the time slots, the duration, everything will be provided. Wait for that video. And thanks for being with me till the back end of the editorial. Have a nice day. And do